What if your entire family was a mafia gang trying to escape their criminal past? The Manzoni family has decided to leave the mob life behind, but it's not that simple. Their old associates aren't happy about it, and now the family is on the run, forced into FBI witness protection, and scattered across different countries. But the mafia's reach is long, and danger lurks in unexpected places. Will the Manzonis survive this deadly cat-and-mouse game? Let's dive into the movie and find out. As the movie begins, we see Rocco, a ruthless mafia hitman who believes he has found his target, killing a family of 4 in cold blood. He believes they are the notorious Manzoni family. He cuts off the father's finger and sends it to Don Lucchese, the mafia boss currently imprisoned, as proof of his work. However, after Lucchese analyzes the fingerprint, it's revealed that Rocco has killed the wrong family. Furious, Lucchese orders Rocco to continue searching for the real Manzonis. Meanwhile, the Manzoni family, Giovanni, a former mafia boss, his wife Maggie, their 2 children Belle and Warren, and their dog Malavita, are now living in the US under the FBI's witness protection program. They are constantly relocating because Lucchese's men are after Giovanni for revenge. Years ago, Giovanni betrayed Lucchese, sending him to prison after snitching to the authorities. In the meantime, the family is forced to leave the US and settle in a small town in Normandy, France, under new aliases. Arriving late at night, they move into a secluded house. While pretending to check out their new home, Giovanni is seen removing a body from his car trunk and burying it in the backyard. The next morning, as the family settles into their new lives, Maggie explores the town. She stops at a cafe, where a waitress confirms her worst fear. The town is small and dull with little to offer. When Maggie later goes grocery shopping, she overhears locals in the convenience store insulting Americans in French, assuming she can't understand them. Enraged, Maggie secretly sets the storeroom on fire by throwing a match after dousing the area with alcohol and gas. She calmly pays for her groceries and leaves the store just before the explosion. Meanwhile, Belle and Warren start attending a new school. Warren immediately gets into trouble when he is beaten up in the bathroom by bullies, after provoking them with his smart-mouthed attitude. At lunch, he meets Belle and tells her that he's already gathering information on the school hierarchy, planning to build his own mafia-like influence among the students. After school, Belle is followed by a car full of teenage boys who invite her to hang out. Though she initially declines, she gets lost in the unfamiliar town and reluctantly accepts the ride. Instead of taking her home, the boys drive her to a popular hangout spot by the lake. When one of the boys makes a move on her, pulling at her dress with suggestive remarks, Belle retaliates by grabbing a tennis racket from the car and violently beating him up. She then commands the others to show more respect toward women before stealing the boy's car and driving it home herself. Giovanni, meanwhile, sneaks out to the property gate to smoke a cigarette, even though he knows he shouldn't be going out. He quickly notices FBI agents hidden nearby, watching over him. He returns inside and searches through the glass garden shed, where he finds an old typewriter. Feeling nostalgic, he decides it's time to write his memoir about his rise to power in the mafia. As he takes a break from writing, Giovanni encounters his neighbor and fabricates a story about being a writer when asked about his profession. As the family gathers for dinner that evening, they receive a visit from Robert Stansfield, the FBI agent overseeing their case. Stansfield approves Giovanni's writer cover story, but asks if he knows anything about the recent disappearance of a shop owner. Giovanni lies, claiming ignorance, though in reality he had murdered the shop owner after discovering that the fresh seafood he had sold him was actually frozen. Stansfield warns Giovanni to stay out of trouble, and informs him that FBI agents D. Sicko and Mimo will be stationed across the street to keep watch over the family. After Stansfield leaves, Giovanni experiences a nightmare about a past barbecue, the event where Lucchese had attempted to kill him. The next day, as Giovanni becomes absorbed in his memoir, Maggie grows alarmed when she learns what he's writing. She worries the memoir could expose them to danger. Frustrated, she storms out to deliver a tray of food to the FBI agents, reminding Giovanni to check the tap water, which has turned brown. At school, Warren continues gathering intel, winning over the right people through stolen goods and information. Belle, on the other hand, has to beat up a girl who tried to steal her pencil case. She also takes notice of Henri, a handsome college student working as a substitute math teacher. All the girls in school are smitten with him, but Belle formulates a plan. She approaches Henri after class and asks him for private math lessons, which he agrees to. Later on, Warren exacts revenge on the bullies who beat him up, ambushing them with the help of his newly assembled gang. Back at home, a plumber arrives late to fix the brown water, further aggravating Giovanni. When the plumber tries to unnecessarily replace all the pipes, Giovanni loses his temper and brutally beats him with tools from the basement. He then takes the injured man to the hospital, where the doctor is perplexed by the severity of his injuries, suspecting the man could not have sustained such damage from merely falling down the stairs. While Giovanni continues to write his memoir about how he used to rule his old neighborhood in Brooklyn, Rocco continues his search for the real Manzonis, killing the family of the seafood shop owner for lack of information. That evening, Maggie scolds Giovanni for beating up the plumber, and in retaliation he brings up her own destructive tendencies, like the fire she started at the convenience store. Their heated discussion reignites their passion, and the couple gets intimate on the couch. As the weekend approaches, the family reluctantly throws a neighborhood barbecue, at Stansfield's insistence, to better integrate into the community. Maggie warns Belle to be careful with Henri and use protection, but Belle assures her mother that she intends to take things seriously and won't rush into anything. Warren, meanwhile, advises Maggie to make American food for the party, knowing the neighbors will prefer it over French cuisine. He's proven right when the neighbors arrive and happily indulge in the odd dishes. The neighbors are curious about the eccentric American family, and seem to enjoy the party. Even Di Sicco and Mimo join in the party. The only one missing is Giovanni, who remains in the garden shed, reflecting on his life. Writing his memoir has made him realize his regrets, particularly about not being a better father and putting his family in constant danger. However, when her mother sends her to get her dad, Belle reassures him, telling him she considers him the best dad in the world. Giovanni, uplifted by his daughter's words, joins the party. However, his mood sours again when the neighbors start giving him unsolicited advice on how to start the barbecue grill. He imagines various ways to punish them for their rudeness, but is fortunately interrupted by Stansfield's arrival. The two men talk privately, and Stansfield expresses concern over Giovanni's memoir, warning him that people in the White House are worried about its potential fallout. Giovanni promises he's writing it for himself and has no intention of publishing it. Stansfield also remarks that Giovanni's decision to expose Lucchese has inspired others in the Mafia to cooperate with the FBI, trading information for protection. As the party winds down, Belle is disappointed that Henri didn't show up, leaving her to wonder about their future. The following day, Giovanni decides to visit the mayor to address the ongoing issue with the town's brown tap water. Unfortunately, the mayor has no solution for the problem, frustrating Giovanni. Though he imagines taking violent action against the mayor, Giovanni manages to leave the office without causing trouble. Determined to resolve the issue, Giovanni heads to the water company, where he learns that the dirty water arrives at the reservoir in that condition. A worker gives him a lead, pointing to a nearby fertilizer factory as the likely culprit. Giovanni visits the factory and confronts the boss, who is rude and uncooperative. In response, Giovanni ties the man to the back of his car and drags him along the road. Eventually, the factory boss confesses, revealing that a malfunctioning turbine is responsible for the contamination. Giovanni threatens him with castration if he ever tells anyone what happened, leaving the boss stranded on the road with his bike. Back home, Giovanni finds Stansfield reading his memoir. Although Stansfield admits the writing is good, he still scolds Giovanni for attempting to document his life. Meanwhile, Maggie continues attending church, where the priest convinces her to go to confession. However, Maggie's disturbing revelations during the confession haunt the priest for a week, and he ultimately bans her from returning to the church. At school, Warren realizes he's forgotten to submit an article for the school newspaper. In a rush, he quickly jots down a quote he remembers from Lucchese, the Mafia boss who has been hunting his family. The newspaper circulates widely, eventually making its way to Lucchese's prison cell. Lucchese instantly recognizes the quote, realizing Giovanni's son must have written the article. So he immediately sends his hitmen to Normandy to track down the family once and for all. Meanwhile, Belle meets Henri in his office just as he prepares to leave for his exams the next day. She has decided to give herself a chance at love, and they end up making love that day. At home that evening, Giovanni receives a call from a neighbor who had attended the family's recent barbecue. The neighbor invites Giovanni to a monthly film event, where they watch a movie and discuss it afterward. Since the next film is an American classic, they ask Giovanni to lead the discussion, given his supposed expertise as a writer. Despite his better judgment, Giovanni agrees to attend. Stansfield, who monitors Giovanni's phone calls, rushes over to warn him that attending the event is a terrible idea. However, Giovanni insists that participating in the event is a good way to fit into the community. Stansfield reluctantly agrees to accompany Giovanni to the event. The next day, Warren's misdeeds at school are uncovered by the administration. Fearing expulsion, Warren decides to flee to Paris and start a criminal empire of his own, just as his father had done at a young age. Before leaving, he says goodbye to Belle, who is heartbroken because Henri only viewed their relationship as a fling. Henri is also heading to Paris after his graduation, leaving Belle devastated. That evening, Giovanni sneaks out of the house to plant a bomb at the fertilizer factory's turbine, which is causing the brown water. After setting the timer, he meets Stansfield, and they head to the film event. Upon arriving, Giovanni and Stansfield are shocked to discover that the movie being screened is Goodfellas, a film about a mafia group. Stansfield immediately regrets agreeing to attend, but Giovanni convinces him that leaving now would only raise suspicion. Following the film, Giovanni is asked to comment on the accuracy of the portrayal of New York and its criminal underworld. Unable to resist, Giovanni launches into stories about his time as a mafia boss, though the audience assumes he's merely exaggerating or telling fiction. Stansfield, however, is concerned that Giovanni is losing control and immediately orders the FBI agents, D. Sicko and Mimo, to round up the family and begin Plan B, their emergency relocation plan. Meanwhile, Warren is at the train station preparing to head to Paris, while Belle stands on the roof of a house, threatening to commit suicide if Henri doesn't take her back. At that moment, both siblings notice a group of Mafia hitmen arriving in town. Realizing the danger, they rush back to the house to warn their parents. Warren attempts to call home, but Maggie, who was just arriving home, couldn't pick up the phone in time. When the hitmen arrive, they kill the police officers at the station and proceed to access the records that reveal Giovanni's address. They also eliminate the firefighters and sabotage the fire trucks by slashing their tires. At the same time, Maggie joins D. Sicko and Mimo, worrying about her children, who haven't returned home. Suddenly, a loud explosion is heard in town. It's the bomb Giovanni had planted at the factory. He had timed it to explode while he attended the film event, providing himself with an alibi. When they return, Stansfield drops Giovanni off at the house, urging him to stay inside while he goes to inform the police. Maggie, also wanting to return home, steps outside but immediately spots the hitmen. She retreats back into the house with D. Sicko and Mimo, trying to call Giovanni, but he doesn't answer. The hitmen arrive at the house and set off another explosion, while killing any curious neighbors who come outside to investigate the noise. Fortunately, Giovanni survives by hiding in the garden after being alerted by Malavita. Maggie attempts to reach Giovanni, but as soon as D. Sicko and Mimo approach the door, they are killed by one of the hitmen. The hitman then threatens Maggie, planning to take advantage of her before killing her. Giovanni arrives just in time, jumping on the hitman and asphyxiating him. Maggie grabs a knife and stabs the attacker, ensuring he's dead. Meanwhile, Warren and Belle return home, having stolen weapons from the hitmen's vehicles. A gunfight ensues, during which Warren and Belle manage to kill most of the hitmen, except for Rocco. Warren is knocked unconscious, and Belle flees after discovering that Rocco's gun is empty. She runs down the street with Rocco chasing after her. Just as Belle seems to have been cornered, Stansfield arrives and runs Rocco over with his car. Although the hitmen are all dead, the family's cover has been blown. Once again, they must relocate to a new town and adopt new identities. And as the movie ends, Giovanni feels a sense of satisfaction. Despite the events that took place, he is glad that his family is now closer and that he finally got to tell his story, even if everyone thought it was just a work of fiction.